I am a graphic designer who has been watching an assload of YouTube recently and has also been catching up on some of the latest superhero films. And one of the things that I noticed is that YouTubers and superheroes have some of the most iconic branding I think I've ever seen as a graphic designer. And that is why today I am going to attempt to turn YouTubers into superheroes. Starting off with a classic and an obvious choice, Mr. Beast. I opened up Photoshop and I slammed a grass image on my canvas, and I also went ahead and put a storm background underneath all of that. And the reason for this is because I wanted there to be a lot of green because I had a plan with money later. Because in case you guys have been living under a rock, Mr. Beast is one of the most charitable guys on YouTube I have ever seen in my life. So as I was designing, I was stuck. I was trying to figure out what superhero Mr. Beast embodied the most. Obviously, Superman. So I went and scoured the web and I grabbed a nice image of Superman and I smacked him onto the canvas to see what we can do with that wireframe. First things first is to cut off Superman's head, cut off Mr. Beast's head, and smash them together. After blending the head on Superman's body, I realized that Mr. Beast is just not Superman. We need to make this a little bit more unique. So I used our good friend Generative Fill to completely get rid of the logo on Mr. Beast's chest and swap it with Mr. Beast's actual logo. And after a little bit of blend diff, it looked like it actually belonged on the chest, which is chef's kiss. Now, this video is not called take a superhero template and call it a day. We have to do some color changes. So I started out with Mr. Beast's iconic blue and I went ahead and drew some color overlay on top of the Superman wireframe to really gauge that it's actually Mr. Beast's suit. After doing that, I realized that it still looked like Superman, so we had to make some changes. Not insane changes, just like add a mask because I'm lazy changes. So I went ahead and added a superhero mask for Mr. Beast, and I obviously recolored it the same blue and pink. So I figured that this would not be a Mr. Beast piece without a fat stack of cash. Jeez, try saying that 10 times fast. Mr. Beast fat stack of cash. Mr. Beast piece, my fat stack of... Anyway, I scaled down the stack of cash right behind Mr. Beast to really make it look like he's a big baller, and we moved on to the next step, which is my favorite part, the golden part of the photo manipulation process. Make everything dark. Obviously to paint back light. I added some lighting to the eyes and added some lighting to the face, and I wanted to make his eyes glow like he was about to do laser vision, like that Superman power, but I made it pink because that's a part of his branding, obviously. I went ahead and painted a bunch of greens in the background and painted a nice bright highlight behind some of the mountains in order to provide some depth of field, as some of the gurus would call it. And then I started realizing this needs some atmosphere. So let's spam some smoke. I took my smoke brush and I absolutely obliterated this piece with smoke, kind of painting kind of all over the place and then taking away smoke and then adding smoke, taking away, you know, the creative process. Now it really started to pop. The light started to really shine through, so I decided to add a utility belt around his waist to... There's no reason, I just thought it looked cool. At this point, I was really relieved. I mean, there was money piles everywhere. Mr. Beast was right in the center of the canvas looking so gorgeous. What more could you want? Well, let me tell you. Atmosphere. So I took the Mr. Beast word mark and I added it as a final title, and then I really started to get into the nitty-gritty with some atmosphere stuff. In case you guys recalled, I wanted this to be a very eerie scene, so I went ahead and grabbed some rain and I smacked it on the canvas and I did a little bit of a blending ting. At this stage, we were looking pretty complete, and honestly, I didn't know where else to take this piece, so I decided to smack the sexiest camera raw anybody's ever seen on this piece. We also made another version with a blue, black, and kind of greenish gradient map because I love gradient maps. I absolutely love them. Which leaves us with these two final products. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments of these. Let's get into the next creator. Now, moving on to our next creator is Mark Rober. Now, Mark Rober is one of the most brilliant scientists I think I've ever seen in my life, and in turn, it makes for very sexy YouTube content. So I figured I'm actually not going to make Mark Rober a hero for a change. He's going to be a mad scientist. So I started with grabbing this dungeon-like image and throwing it into Photoshop with this most Shutterstock-looking stock photo I think I've ever seen from Envato Elements. Shout out Envato. Now, I'm a risky person, so I decided to jump the gun a little bit, and I cut off Mark Rober's head. Cut out Mark Rober's head, I mean... Let's relax. And I went ahead and put his head on the Envato Elements image that I found, which honestly did not look super terrible at the time. Now, if Mark Rober is going to be a mad scientist, he needs a mad layer, so let's build him one. I went ahead and found some 3D lab equipment from Envato Elements, and I smacked it into the canvas. And obviously we needed a light source, so I went ahead and put a light source on the wall right next to him that probably was going to be orange. I also wanted to put a ceiling light in the matter because, I mean, that's just badass. And then I went ahead and put a mask on Mark Rober, which is unfortunate because you can't really tell it's Mark Rober, but it adds to the scene, so I said screw it. I started with painting some orange highlights over Mark Rober's wireframe and adding a little bit of haze glow to the light that's directly to the right of him and some shadows. And after a while, it did in fact start coming together, which is super helpful. I even did this neat little thing with the syringe where I made it glow so it looks like he's about to inject you with a slurp juice or a chug jug from Fortnite. Yeah. This also gave me the idea to make other potions in the room glow, so I went ahead and did that. I jumped back into it and I decided to create a nice spotlight above Mark Rober to see what we can work off of. And it was around this point where I made the light blue, I realized that UV is actually kind of sexy for this piece. Except for the fact that UV is soft light. And I'm sorry, but I hate designing with soft light. So I had another genius idea. Think of every mad scientist you've ever seen, whether or not it's Frankenstein, maybe like, you know, the doctor from Dead by Daylight, something crazy. What do they all have in common? Electricity. So I added a big ass battery behind Mark Rober and I went ahead and played around with some lightning stocks. Let me just tell you one thing right now, finding lightning images on the internet to actually design well with is just... So I eventually gave up finding lightning images on the internet, so I went all the way back to designing in 2010 and opened up a graphics pack that I had not in a while. And that is the Amplify graphics pack by Mixo. Shout out to you too. Not that the graphics pack is a person. Anyway, we moving on. Smacked the lightning image right behind Mark Rober and we were looking golden. And after doing a couple of hours of highlight work on Mark Rober's hair and the back of his arms and stuff like that, I think it's safe to say that the lightning play definitely played off well. I again decided to add a lot of smoke because in my mind, if electricity is hitting lab equipment, there's probably a lot of like, you know, excess like smoke going around, which I mean, it also makes sense for the mask. I mean, it's all about context, right? Storytelling, as they say. So I went ahead and made the mask glow, and I also added this super sick Mark Rober text at the top to signify that this poster was for him. Finalizing it all with one of these sexiest camera raws I think I've ever done, darkening a lot of the shadows and also bringing up a lot of the blues and the purples and changing a little bit of the hues. We were left with this final image, and it honestly reminds me of something you'd see in like the 80s, like Advanced Warfare, Zombies in Spaceland type, you know, design style. And obviously I made a badass counterpart duotone kind of gradient map version that's more like purple and orange heavy. I want to know what you guys think of Mark Rober's down below in the comments, and it's time to leave the best for last and go super hard with this last one. Tackling our last creator, it is going to be Sketch. Now, trying to figure out where Sketch kind of belonged environmentally was a little bit tricky considering he's mainly known for just like gaming and other things like that, but I figured that if I were to match a personality, it would probably be the Flash. Plus, I just wanted a lame excuse to use the Flash because unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunately, I have a good idea for Lightning Brother. So I decided to kind of clean slate a little apocalyptic scene, and I added some destroyed buildings in the background and like a green storm in the back, which was super sick because the idea was to eventually play with fire. Don't do that though at home. I attempted to add this like super kind of like sci-fi heavy mask, but let's just say it didn't really work out well. And the reason for that is Sketch is known to always be wearing his Apple headset, so I figured it'd be a nice touch. I decided that the color scheme should be red and black because the color composition that I had in mind with this piece was going off. Because this was not going to be like any other piece. We have to pay homage to the GOAT Sketch. I then decided to highlight all of the lightning bolt areas with light blue because, you know, the color started flowing into my brain. I went ahead and darkened all of my layers and painted a little bit of an orange spotlight behind the buildings and a little bit of an orange haze behind Sketch to create some atmospheric depth. And then I tried to paint some shadows, which totally worked out. I decided to skip the shadows for a minute and I did a little bit of a lighting outline on Sketch, and then I realized that the reason why I was struggling so much with creating a shadow is because there wasn't a dignified light source. I moved the orange light a little bit to the right and I made sure that it would be easier to cast some shadows, and believe it or not, it did. I also want to add that I added an S on his chest, obviously for Sketch. Sketch can beat Superman in a fight. Comment if you agree. So after painting a lot of rim lights and making sure that the piece was starting to come together, I still was not satisfied with the light source that I had in the background. It looked like it was just floating there. So I decided to take my mind off it because, again, I love to run away from my problems. And then I realized if he's going to be based off of the Flash, where is the lightning? So I went ahead and opened up Amplify again because I did not want to search 17 hours for a lightning image. And I started to blend it within the composition to make sure it fit right. And I also made sure to change the color to blue, obviously. And then it hit me. I have an orange spotlight in the back and there's nothing there. It looks like it's floating. What else is orange? Fire. So I went ahead and added a fire image, which was way easier thanks to Envato, and I smacked it in the piece and changed it to screen, baby. So I went ahead and added the word mark sketch, which was a font. I don't think Sketch has a word mark. And then I had the most genius idea. Okay, Iron Man has an arc reactor on his chest, right? Why can't Sketch? So I made a little bit of like kind of haze light on that chest area to make it look like it was glowing out. And let me tell you, this paid off. Not only is Sketch now tall enough to play in the NBA, but he is also a superhero. So Sketch, you can thank me for that later. Anyway, it was time to move on to the camera raw. I made sure to add a lot of red and blues because that was the original idea I had for this piece, the little cherry on top. I also went ahead and made a second version and made sure it was duotone to give it the rest of the treatment that the other pieces had, which left us with, in my opinion, the best piece out of this little trio video. And just like that, we've turned 3 YouTubers into 3 superheroes, which was super fun. And to be completely honest, I'm really pleased with the final results. I want to know, which one was your favorite? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you guys want to see a video like this again, let me know what creators you want to see next. But without further ado, I'm gonna go continue to watch more superhero films to prepare for Deadpool 3. I'll see you guys later. Peace.